Welcome, everyone, to the EmpowerMAN podcast. My name is Mike Gallagher from the free state of Florida. Here with my boy, Greggy T, Greg Tedora. Greggy, how's it going, man?
What's up, man? How are you? How's it going?
Every day above ground's a blessing, my friend. How
Agreed.
about yourself?
Pretty good, man. How's your Saturday?
My Saturday is awesome. We got great weather down here, so nothing beats that here. And 1,000 people a day are moving to Florida.
Yeah. Well, 1,000 people are
So
moving out of where I'm from. So,
so it's kind of crazy because the real estate here is really drying up.
yeah.
So to be thankful that I have a great home, I got a great career, and the fact that we can do this together is a blessing, and it's very thankful for it. So, we decided to start this podcast, Greg and I, because we wanted to empower men, empower each other all around the world. Now more than ever, with everything going on in the world, with all the distractions and all the noise, men need to be able to filter that stuff out and to be able to step into the life that they were meant to live. Wouldn't you say so, Greg?
Absolutely. 100% correct.
As men, we get bogged down with stress. We get bogged down with internal and external forces. There are so many things that are grabbing at us that men need to stay focused. Men need to stay, and women too, but this is designed for men to empower men to be the best version of themselves. And I know that gets thrown around a lot, but there's really no meaning behind it. People say things sometimes without any context, or they don't say things with a proper meaning behind it. But to really step into the life that you're supposed to live, it could be being the best parent, the best father, the best child, the best athlete, the best worker. And Greg, you fit all those categories. How would
Thank
you
you.
say, hey, you're the best father, by the way? Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, not only is this guy the man, he's the brother I never had because I'm an only child, but this guy is a devoted husband, father, uh, parent, you name it. You fit so many different roles, like I just mentioned earlier. And I can't think of a better person for me to learn from, but for all men around the world to learn from and extrapolate some of the tidbits of wisdom that you've been able to acquire over the years than you, my friend.
Thank you. That's a tough act to follow, my friend. But thank you.
Well, Greg, the truth, that is the truth, man. And we drop truth bombs here.
Yeah.
We are very transparent. And the whole premise with this is a conversation. This is a platform for not just Greg and I, but for everybody. It's a community that it's kind of weird with the pandemic how we've been able to build. Greg, you mentioned this ecosystems
Yeah.
and certain communities, and there is a big uh, trend with online training, with online schooling. It gives you a chance to meet people from all over the world. And I think for us to connect with men in Australia, to connect with people in California, I think that's the biggest blessing. And I'm going to use that a lot because in my everyday nomenclature, I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful. Even the days that I get really angry and PO'd, I always try to step back and say, hey, you know what? I got a roof over my head. I have water. I have running water. When we start focusing on those little things, Greg, that's when we start to change the way we think about life. Wouldn't you say?
You're just taking inventory, like we like to say. We're
Taking
grateful for
stock.
every little thing that we have. The
Now,
simplest thing.
now, Greg, today we're going to talk about, and I'm really excited about it. If you haven't noticed, I'm a little excited about today's topic. A little. We're going to talk about vulnerability and self-identity. And I think now more than ever, men need to be vulnerable. They need to feel okay being vulnerable. A lot of things you see on social media tend to have negative connotations towards men and about the the perceived notion of how a man's supposed to act, what a man's supposed to do. And the beautiful thing about life is that we're all different. And we need to embrace that. We need to glorify our individuality because that's what makes everybody so special, but makes the world a great place. And Greg, just give us your perspective on what it means to be vulnerable.
For me, being vulnerable is being transparent with yourself first. So allowing yourself to feel whatever emotions you happen to be feeling at that specific time. And it could be any of them. It could be anger, sadness, whatever the case may be. I think being vulnerable is a good thing. And I think having, like Mike said, a community around you who also feels the same way about their self vulnerability really blends nice together. Another layer of vulnerability is, I think, how we grew up and where we grew up. It was kind of frowned upon to show your vulnerability, and oh, you're not a man, you're not a tough guy, you're not whatever the case may be. But and we fell into that trap, at least I did for a long time. And I think as you mature, and I don't put an age on it, I think once you tap into being okay with that, a lot of things fall into perspective in a good way.
When can you remember the first time that you allowed yourself to be vulnerable?
I think the first time I allowed myself is, it's a good question. So I grew up a competitive swimmer. Since I started swimming at 7, I was one of the fastest kids at 8 years old in New York, was traveling all over the country. And, all throughout like 8, 9, 10, 11, I think the first time I felt, or at least I was in tune with some sort of vulnerability, was when some of the older guys on the swim team, the next level up, the next age group up, kind of, and I'll use this word, it's thrown out a lot. I don't mean it in necessarily a bad way, which I'll talk about, but they bullied and they picked on and they roughed up some of the younger swimmers. And just falling into that category by age, by default, it trickled down my way and my friends. And I think that was the first time I truly felt vulnerable, because I'm somewhat on my own in practice, after practice, in the locker room. You have to fend for yourself. You don't have your parents around. You don't have your core group of, like, your school friends, for example, around, and you had to figure it out. So I think that was the first time I truly felt vulnerability. Now, hindsight's 2020. I think all of that, like I said, I'll use the word bullying, whatever you want to use it, hazing. It was a great thing later on in life. And I truly, to a degree, believe in that stuff.
Did you allow yourself to feel vulnerable though? Would you say, okay, this is the situation, or did you fight the vulnerability? Like most people tend to fight that.
Obviously, in the beginning, definitely fought it, and did not let it sink in, absorb, and let out what I was truly feeling. Had to put on the role of the tough guy, and they're not going to get me, and don't be embarrassed in front of the girls, and that whole thing. So no, to answer your question, I was not in tune with it, and I didn't go with it. I didn't go with the flow. I didn't know any better. I think I was just, like I said, I wasn't mature enough. I was too young.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy when you think about it as men, how we have different phases before we hit that mature phase. Some, depending on where they live, mature a little bit faster.
Yep.
Some, it takes a while and it's a process. And I think we
Yeah.
want to tell the men that this is a journey, it's a process. It doesn't end with identifying your vulnerabilities and allowing yourself to be vulnerable and giving yourself the freedom to feel these things, because there's going to be situations where you might just react instead of taking inventory, taking stock of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So this conversation and what Greg and I are espousing is to create an awareness.
Yeah.
That's the big thing, Greg.
I mean, granted, I was 8, 9, 10 years old. You're not going to know any better, but you can be 28, 29, and 30 and still not be aware or be in control enough of yourself to let your guard down and allow yourself to be vulnerable. Don't give yourself a hard time. Everyone comes around at different times.
That's right. That's right. Our friend Phil, who you'll meet our cast of characters over time, Phil said to me once, it doesn't matter when you get to the dance as long as you get there. as long as you get there, and you can take that and apply that to any situation, any
Yep.
circumstance, wouldn't you say? Greg, how would you feel that being vulnerable has kind of played a role in your self-identity?
These are good questions, Mike. I think the vulnerability and allowing yourself to, be in it, recognize it, I think it plays into your true self-identity. And I also think, this is my opinion, you don't know your self-identity until you are tapped in with your vulnerability. I think they're joined. I think they align, and I think they play off each other. So I think knowing your self-identity is, they kind of like piggyback each other, if I'm making sense.
Absolutely.
And people might think they know who they are or who they identify as or whatever, but you have to have both to go forward. You can't have one without the other.
I agree. I agree. Self-identity in my lens is having an understanding of oneself. Now, self-identity, there's so many things you can grab and choose from.
Yep.
Your core values, your core beliefs, childhood experiences, influences from other people. And I would probably assume, like I did, I took a little from everybody, both
Yep.
good and bad. But my self identity at my core was deep rooted in my childhood. My mom got me into Catholicism, young age, went to confirmation, communion, all that. And that laid a really good foundation for my core values, even though as I got older, I tended to drift away for a long, long time and then found my way back in more of a Christian role. I'm very proud of that. Um, so with those experiences came my self identity. But going back to childhood, being raised by a single mom, it was kind of a absorption of how my mother was. I took that on as well as part of my self identity. So being vulnerable for me has been something that I've been open to my whole life. I'm an open book. I wear my heart on my sleeve. People can see who I am a mile away. I've tried to play roles in the past, and it's just never who I was at my core. It just wasn't who I am. And guys, you can't really BS people. Like you said, you people try to put the role on, and I want you to elaborate more on this, Greg. How many times have people tried to be the baller, the player, the tough guy,
Hmm.
and having that type of identity early on, really tapping into it, even now as older men, taking stock of how we feel and who we are allows us to be vulnerable and provide some type of lens as to who we are. Is that pretty fair to say?
Absolutely. I think you touch on a good point of, and we still know people at our age. I'm 45, you're soon to be 45. I think we still know people that are trying to put on a front of somebody that they're not. Now, that's their problem. There's nothing you can really do about that. But people that are in tune can see it. It's like the Matrix. You can just read right through that because we know who these people truly are. And for some reason, they just won't let that come out, whether it's circumstances like you said, where they're from, who they're with, their spouse, their boyfriend, their girlfriend, whatever the case may be. They just don't allow themselves to put their own wall all the way down so they can truly be who they are. And it's sad to see that in a way, because I think it's like you got to be exhausted because you're just going day by day. It's an act. You're acting like you're somebody else, and it's it's such, in my opinion, a waste of time and a waste of energy, and it could be focused on so much better and so much more good can come from that, but they won't allow it. They fight it.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of people just don't know how because that's the
Hmm.
way those neural patterns have been formed. And it's
Exactly.
tough. So, as men, the first step in really obtaining that type of freedom is to identify.
Yeah.
Identify those things. Greg and I say this all the time: taking inventory, taking stock, identifying those limiting factors or things that have been plaguing you throughout your life. That's stuff that's been holding you back. Those things that create like an emotional anchor and is holding you down and weighing you down, so that you can get your head above sea level, so that you can breathe, so that you can have more energy, so that you can have the freedom to live your life. And I want to ask this question, Greg, just to follow up with it.
Mhm.
You and I are perceived as tough in certain ways. I know I have been perceived that way, which I'm totally not. You've been perceived that way, which you totally are. I would not want to I would not want to get
I'm old
into
now,
a
Mike. I'm old.
I
20
would
years
not
ago,
want to
maybe,
get on
not
your bad
anymore.
side.
Those days are over.
Why is vulnerability a sign of weakness? When people see that someone is vulnerable, guy or girl, it's perceived as he's weak or she's weak, because there are women that will be listening to this.
Yeah.
Why is vulnerability a sign of weakness to some people?
I just think it's been embedded in the culture for so long, generation after generation after generation. I mean, look back, like the grandfathers and the great grandfathers, like, don't cry, don't cry, don't show emotion, don't show, embedded, passed on, passed on. So I think that is a major part of it. And you see it in, movies and all that, and just social media. So we've spoken about this. You open this discussion today about all the good things that, in my opinion, social media does. You can reach that person across the country or across the world. Love that, and I'm all for that. But I think that's such a small percentage. Social media is horrible. It's garbage. It's trash. It's ruining everybody, every age bracket, from little kids to older adults, in my opinion. And I just think it's just been embedded in our culture. Add horrible social media. Add people don't have core values like they used to. Add in people aren't tapped into their self-awareness. So you can't expect somebody to be vulnerable with all those factors. That's a bad recipe. Nothing good's going to come out of that. So I think I think people need to take a step back if they're not happy with their life. And like you said before, insert any situation: job, finances, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever it may be. Take a step back and see what the problem is and be unbiased about it. And it all starts with being honest with yourself. We said we're transparent. We'll tell you how it is. You have to tell yourself how it is. So, like, don't play the victim. That's another problem nowadays. Take a step back. If there's always a certain problem, figure out what that is, and then figure out the root of that. Most of the time, it's probably you. But
Right.
people don't want to take accountability. That's a whole other discussion.
That's another episode that we're going
Yeah.
to touch on. That is it's a great topic for
Accountability
conversation.
is out the window this day and age. It's just out from the top down. It's out.
Yeah, and especially self accountability in regards to vulnerability and identifying who you are, because I feel that a lot of people pass the buck. You
Oh,
see
yeah.
that in society, starting at the highest level in this country, and it kind of permeates through society about taking accountability,
Yep.
taking responsibility for situations and things. And there's a very healthy quotient or resultant that comes from that self type of accountability and self awareness of saying, hey, this was my responsibility.
Yeah.
I messed up, or I didn't do this right. I will learn from it. We all make mistakes, guys. We can't be afraid to make mistakes. But I want to circle back.
Real quick, I was
Yeah,
just gonna
go ahead.
say, we all fuck up from time to time. We do.
We do.
There's
We
no
do.
problem with that. That's where the true growth and the true answers to the test for your future will come from. Every
Right.
single successful person, and you can identify success as money, relationship, whatever, I don't care, materialistic things, they all say the same thing. So now tell yourself, they all say the same thing for a reason. Because without messing up, without failing, without taking a shot and going for it, yeah, you might lose some money, you might do this, it might set you back. But like Mike said, you're still here. You woke up, you got feet on the ground. You learned from that, so you know what not to do. And in my opinion, knowing what not to do is just as important as learning what is good and what to do.
Mm,
And you take that and you move forward and you try again from a different angle, and you never know what's going to happen.
that was awesome. So well put, Greg. I like to call that failing forward. I
Exactly.
think we need to, as men, a lot of men, you and I have aspirations, ambitions. I'm sure if we interviewed 1,000 men or took a survey online and threw out that question about ambition, probably 99.9% of us are all in unison in regards to our goals and ambitions and aspirations as men. It could be whether you want to be an entrepreneur, whether you want to be an athlete, or anything that your heart desires. Being able to step into the life you're supposed to live or you were meant to live is weird because our framework was developed at such a young age.
Yeah.
And we tend to blame our parents for this, like,
And it's
especially
not their
in,
fault. It's
it's
not their fault.
not their
They did
parent.
the best they can from what they were
That's right.
doing and what they
And
were
that's
shown.
100%. 100%. And that's one thing, being the victim. You got to throw that out. If you're blaming your parents because you don't like women, and then when I say don't like women, you have a certain apathy or loathe or anger towards the opposite sex,
Mm-hmm.
or you are this angry person, or you are this, you treat people in a way that's not becoming. You can't blame your parents for that, guys. Your parents can't coddle you when you're 30, 40, 20 years old. You, like Greg said, our parents did the best they could
Yep.
with the tools they were given.
Yep.
And as men, women, we need to be able to step back and just give a breath of gratitude to our parents for bringing us into this world, for giving us the things that we needed. Maybe some things they couldn't give us because they didn't know how, but they brought us here. They got us to this point. And without my mom and dad, without your mom and dad, you and I wouldn't be here having this
100%.
discussion.
Absolutely. And take inventory of what Mike just said. Your parents, be grateful, be thankful. They did what they could. And you got to just throw this victim mentality out the window on every front. It is not good for you. It'll set you back. We can all do it. Mike could do it right now when we end this podcast. I could do it also. I could do it this morning, tonight. We all have bills. We all have this. We all have that. You can turn the victim on in a blink of an eye, and it'll always be there. You got to keep it at bay because it'll slow you down. And the difference between when you look at somebody that you aspire to be like, or they have the lifestyle that you want or whatever, what is the true difference between them and you? They're a human, they breathe air, they go to the bathroom like you. What is the difference? I can guarantee you there isn't any. The only difference is they just kept going. They didn't let anything stop them. They didn't let anybody stop their beliefs or their visions or their goals. They kept going. They definitely failed, probably numerous times, and they kept going. That's the only difference.
That's a great point you make, Greg. Just keep fighting,
Yeah.
keep pushing forward. And I want to ask a question. I think this is extremely important when it comes to self identity and vulnerability. We talked about those two elements in personal and business. Give us your perspective. You're married, have a family. Back in the day, we dated, we did our thing. How would you say your self identity and knowing who you are and knowing your core beliefs led you to meet your wife, your children, your business in real estate? How would you say they played a role in bringing those into your life? But also, I would say how it played a role in picking your partner and picking the profession that you chose to get into.
So, great question. By the time I was ready to call it settle down, whatever you want to say,
Yeah.
I knew beforehand, I knew who I was. It took me a long time. I knew what I wanted in a partner, and I was in tap. So we all have core values. Like you said, I think they were instilled when we were younger by whoever we were around, parents, guardians, whatever, friends. Everyone has some set of core values. I don't care where it comes from. So I've always had my underlying core values my whole life. Now, the girls I dated or messed around with, whatever, obviously not all of them are in line with the core values that I was given. But as you mature and you know what you want long term, you tap into those core values. So when I met my wife, I knew that they aligned or she aligned with what I wanted for our core values aligned, which means we can now move forward on the same path together with the same vision. And that's a true team. All right, team members get mad at each other on the court, off the court, whatever, that's fine, but they're still on the same team. They still have the same goal and they're on the same path. And that's what I realized later on in life because, I didn't get married till I was older, and that's and part of that decision process, I call them my non-negotiables. When you date, you have fun. And then when you realize it's either A, not going anywhere, or B, this is not what I want, that's when you should ask yourself about, do you even have non-negotiables? Everyone should have them. And you want to make sure that you're not compromising or settling in any way with your core values.
I love those two buzzwords, non-negotiables.
Yeah.
And
I
compromise.
got that word. I'm in a coaching group, so I have a coach. And I learned that term from him. And it's awesome. It really is awesome.
Isn't it amazing the nomenclature that we use and the language we use? It's funny.
We all have it. We just call it different things. And then once we hear a word that really resonates with us, it just really, all of a sudden, the stars align and it makes total sense.
And it's funny you bring that to light because there's a biblical reference, and I'm paraphrasing here, about it's not what goes in your body that defiles you, it's the stuff that comes out of your mouth that defiles you. And defiling could mean a lot of things to a lot of people. We'll use words as the defilement because we often put ourselves down. I'm not good enough. I'm a jerk. I'm an idiot. I'm so stupid. And those words become life. When you defile, those words come out of your mouth and into the universe, it becomes life. You give life to those types of meanings and sayings.
Yeah.
And we need to be very careful of that as men to make sure that our conversations are good and wholesome. We want to have the right response for everyone. That's another biblical reference in regards to how we communicate with each other. Granted, you and I use language sometimes that is expressing how we really feel.
Yes.
But when it comes to the overall context of our conversations, we can sit here and complain about so much stuff. But we got to be able to extrapolate the positive. We got to be able to see that silver lining in the clouds, especially over the last 3 years. I'm going to say it, over the last 3 years since the pandemic, we've had a lot of dark clouds over us as a country, but over us as humans. And we need to be able to take that silver lining and create the context. We need to be able to support, no matter what side of the fence we're on, we have to support our leaders. We have to pray that they'll do what's best for us. We can sit here and say, this person's not fit, this person's not good, but regardless, they are where they are. And we need to almost come together now more than ever as men, as women, citizens, Americans. Yes, we need to show more love to each other and more kindness and more compassion. And that is a part of being vulnerable. It's not a part of being weak. It's also a part of a positive self-identity. And Greg, you mentioned so many great things. I want to ask you a question in regards to all the stuff we've been talking about. You You and I talk a lot about personal power. And I think vulnerability and self identity can really play a role in the equation of personal power.
Mhm.
What does it personal power mean to you?
I think they're the fuel for your personal power. The self identity, the vulnerability, they fuel personal power. To me, having power is the ability to help people out with their problems. I'll give you an example. To me, power is someone has a problem, someone needs something fixed, someone needs a decision made, someone needs guidance on something. They come to me. That's to me, that's power. The ability to help people out of their situation into a situation, figure out a solution, give them options. That's my personal definition of power. So I think having power is a great thing. And you touched upon before, I was writing down, words have meaning. So choose your words carefully. Like Mike said, you're putting them out there in the universe. People are receiving them. So if you say some really bad shit or some sideways shit, even though you don't mean it, you don't know how it's going to land on those people that hear it. And now their perception of you is horrible or not what it should be or tainted or whatever word you want to use. And now you might have lost that engagement, lost that possible connection, possible member of a community because you guys might have the same outlook or same beliefs. You don't know. And you're not going to know now because you put out some bad shit out there. And also, we can all harp on the negative. There's plenty of negative out there in this world nowadays, in this country, on the planet, you name it. Change the narrative, turn the station. Mike barely watches the news anymore. I barely watch the news anymore. Change the narrative. I want to attract positivity and I cut out like a cancer the negative in my life, personal, business, finances. If it doesn't make sense, it's out. If you don't add value to me, you're out. If you're not a happy, I'm not saying happy go lucky, but if you're not a happy, positive person, you're out. I'll talk to you here and there. It's cool. But I don't have that bandwidth for that negativity. I just don't want to do it. So, power, getting back to Mike's question, power is the ability to help somebody out. I want people to come to me no matter what it is. My profession, my wheelhouse is in the real estate space. People come to me to solve problems, get deals to the closing table, to make deals happen. I'm a mediator a lot of the times, believe it or not, which is ironic. Like Mike said about our pasts, I actually try to sit two people down, come to a solution, and figure it out and move forward where everyone's happy. That's power. How do you define personal power?
A great question. With the premise of our podcast, empowerment, it's having the ability and having the tools to provide yourself the freedom to live in accordance to your core values and
Good word,
beliefs.
Mike. Good word. Yep.
I
I
read
like
my
it.
thesaurus before I came on.
I like it.
Yeah, I keep a
It's the
thesaurus next to my
freedom,
bed.
man.
It's the
That
freedom.
freedom.
It is. All kidding aside, we tend to live in prisons based upon our past experiences.
And a lot
And
of them are self-made. Sorry, I have to say that.
no, you're absolutely correct. It's the voices. A
Yes.
lot of things, and Greg and I talk about this quite often, and this will come up a lot in our
Yeah.
conversations and on this platform. Fear and anxiety are not walking through that door. You can't put a physical
Yeah.
association with them. They're in our heads. So to be able to control those voices is it's a daily battle. The battle rages on every
Every
day.
day. Every day.
Every day. Self-doubt. I go through it. I'm never going to find someone that I can truly love and appreciate, or I don't make enough money, or I'm never going to get out of debt, or I'm never going to get out of my own way. And it's very easy. But like Greg said, it's okay to feel that, but you got to get out of it.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel it. Let me get out of it. Because if you live in that world for too long, the next thing you know, days, months, weeks, years, all that time gets wasted. And Greg, you make a great point about wasting time, because as episodes go on and the Greg and I have these discussions, the time is now.
It's your biggest asset, in my opinion. Forget money and all that. Time, because number one, we're on the clock. We don't know how much time we have. Nobody knows. We could check out tomorrow. Why are you going to waste your time, waste your friend's time, your community's time, your spouse's time, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whoever's time, being negative and being a Debbie Downer? No one wants to be around that. That's why, if you really take a step back and look, misery loves company. You can see them a mile away. And this is why Mike always says community is a huge, huge help for people to get out of this and to quickly pivot their brain. Like Mike said, he gave all the examples why he could be negative right away. And you know what? While he was going through those things, in my mind, I'm like, started his own business, growing year to year, scaling it, employing people. It's like positive, positive, positive. That's a community. So when Mike is down in the dumps about whatever he just listed, I just countered his list with all reality, real things that are happening, real time, all positive. So sometimes we lose sight of that. And that's why you need somebody to be like, well, wait a second. Okay, maybe that's the case, but don't forget this. And same for me with him, as I can have a shitty day, I can do this, I can do that. Well, Greg, don't forget, you have a great family, you have awesome kids, you have an awesome wife, blah, blah, blah. You have great friends. We have a really, really tight inner circle of boys. It's the greatest group chat ever. It can never get out in public. You'll never see us again. But little things like that will get you out of the dumps immediately. Community is important, but choose your community based on your core values. Everyone has core values. You didn't have to have two parents have core values growing up. You can have two parents, divorced parents, adopted, I don't care, insert whatever. You know what? You can scrub all your history and you can start creating your core values from here on forward. Past doesn't matter. Start now.
The time is now, Greg. You mentioned it so elegantly in regards to, we don't know how much time we have left on this world and this earth, because every day we wake up is another reminder how brief our time is, how our life is fleeting. Time is going on. Guys, girls too, if you're listening, the time to act is now.
Yeah.
Don't wait, because as you said, Greg, time is an asset. It can also be a liability, because we can think, as society has told us, oh, you've got time, you can figure it out. Oh, maybe you want to switch careers, or maybe you want to switch cities that you live in, or maybe you want to, whatever it is that you want to change. Don't think you have time. Greg and I have both lost friends early in life that thought that they had a lot of time. I'll even take it a step further. Kobe Bryant was in the peak of his life, and a helicopter crash one morning ended it for him and his
with his daughter.
With his daughter in his arms.
How old is she?
12. 12. I think she's 12.
So think about it. You're 12. You're on top of the world. You don't really have any worries. Life is great every day. And look, boom, snatched.
And you're taking a helicopter from your house to a basketball practice. Like, how awesome is that? How good were you feeling? And also the other families on that plane ride as well.
Exactly.
The parents and families, just, here you are, you wake up, you're having breakfast with your mom and dad. Next thing you know, all three of you have perished. So we need to keep reminding ourselves that life is fleeting. And I want to take it a step further. We talked about vulnerability, self-identity, personal power, community. Those words kind of create a table, like setting a table. Greg, you love this term. You use this quite frequently in your speeches, earning a spot at the table. A lot of guys, myself, I've had people that were less than desirable that sat at my table for a long time.
Me too.
We can go back in time, right? When you look at betrayals and breakups and other people that may not be desirable in our world, personal worlds. Greg, how do you let people, or how do people earn a spot at your table?
So how they earn their seat at the table is once you realize there's a connection there. Okay, step one, connection, physical, whatever, step one. And then you take it the next step, like, okay, I actually enjoy hanging out with this person. Step two, everything's cool. But as you spend more time, you bring in your core values, whatever. The thing is, when you're trying to grow as a person, stay positive as a person, build a community, build your life, build your finances, build whatever, that person at that table has to contribute to that. And I don't mean by any means money, not 1 cent. I'm talking contribute energy, positivity, support, mental support, and camaraderie, but true camaraderie, not the rah rah bullshit or they're just shining you or whatever.
Mm.
And you can sniff that out in 2 seconds. So don't worry about like, oh, are they on board or not? You'll know right away if they're in it for real or if they're not. But they have to earn their seat at the table. A lot of guys, and if you want to live that lifestyle, it's fine. It's a revolving door, which we've all done, whatever. But there's no growth there. And if you keep asking yourself, man, why are these girls so crazy? Or why is this it's not working out? Not like I said, take a step back, look at your table, like Mike said, what's on your table. The persons should bring their own values and their own table, and you guys combine table, everything should be the same on it. Like I said, and you move forward. They have to earn their seat, meaning, do you just add anything to my life? Do you add happiness to my life? Keep it simple. And do you add growth in my life? Do you add ambition? A lot of girls in my past sucked the ambition right out of me. And if you allow that, you'll never go where you're supposed to go because you're always worrying or having to deal with their stuff or they're that dead weight. You got to cut it. There should be no weight at all when you're with somebody. It should just be you're in the same direction at the same speed. You're in the same current. You're not swimming against it. You're swimming with it together. There should be no holding back at all. So that's a long answer to your question.
How would you say, and you gave great examples. I mean, you were rapid fire and guys, we encourage you, if you need to listen to this more than one time,
Yep.
let this be a resource because we are a resource for men
Yeah.
that are going through this stuff. Really absorb what Greg and he just mentioned a lot of great examples. Really take stock of this, apply this because building a healthy table is important because if you have people that are at your table that are holding you back, like Greg said, and I can relate to him on a lot of those levels with it just sucking the energy out of you and sucking the ambition out of you. And it becomes this one big cornucopia of anxiety, fear, depression, worry, anger.
Stifling.
It's stifling. It's like suffocating.
Yeah.
It's like you're drowning and you keep constantly trying to fight your way up, but you can't get up there.
Yep.
And I want to add upon that, Greg. How do you feel these factors that you mentioned and that we've talked about today can build and maintain self-worth? Like, how would you go for the guy out there that just went through a bad divorce,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they lost a lot of their money, or maybe they're starting over. And when you start over, it's great because it's like tabula rosa, right? It's a blank slate, it's a
Yep.
clean page. Give a basic premise or a basic outline if a guy is starting over and you want to build and maintain that self-worth throughout your life. Like, what would you say some of the keys things that have helped you where you're at today?
Okay. If you just got, I've never been divorced, but if you broke up with somebody or you ended a partnership in business, whatever. Mike just said you have a clean slate, right? It's like that etch a sketch and you rip it and it's clean now. Embrace that now you're free. Okay. You can now rewrite your own book, which is great. Stop thinking about the past and, oh, I just broke up, but that's over. Turn the page, look this way now. That way, I said this before. The windshield in a car is a hell of a lot bigger than the rear view mirror. So
Mm.
apply that in your life. The rear view mirror is small because you don't need to see that much that's behind you, but you need to see where you're going, and that's huge. It's open. Same thing. You have a clean slate now. And in my opinion, I wouldn't jump into another relationship at all. I would focus and harness all the energy, all this clean slate, empty space, and just do you. I would use that as motivation to completely crush your physical mental state. Start working out, start dieting, start eating great, just start doing what makes you happy. Mike always says, good in, good out. Eat good food, feel good, and you perform great. So start with that. Start with building up your finances. You want to start a company, you want to do this, you want to change jobs, you want to, I don't know, start your own company, go do it. Now's the time. And build, these are all building yourself. Notice I didn't say there's no one in this equation but you. Tap into, re-tap into your core values if you lost it or if they went away. Reassess what's on your table and focus only on that. Don't go looking for anybody new. The right person, Michael say this, God will put in front of you. At some point they will. You could be going to get gas. You can't focus on where you're going to meet them. Just reassess what you want and just do you, focus on you and move forward. Don't worry about what's in the past. That's as best as I could put it.
Wow. I don't think you could have put it any better. That was awesome.
It's not easy. I mean,
No.
it's so hard to do, but you know what? What's the alternative? You have to be mentally strong. And if you're not mentally strong, great time to focus on getting mentally strong. And when you focus on all this and you do meet somebody new or some people that are new, you'll know even faster. No, 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 yes. That's the one. That's the one that I want to now at least move forward with to the next step. And you'll phase out all the other things because you're so hyper focused on your goals and yourself that you're not even going to put up with any bullshit, which you don't want to do.
Wow. That was great. Like I said, you couldn't have put that any better. And to kind of put a bow around this episode, guys, this is practice.
Reps.
It's reps, it's sets, it's all different types of variability. Greg and I gave you a bunch of great takeaways. I also encourage you to go beyond and search for resources, seek out resources
Yep.
that can further help you, whether Greg and I are not licensed counselors, we're not doctors, we're just two guys having a conversation based upon our life experiences and what we've been able to acquire to empower other people. Greg mentioned it about God putting things in your life, or God puts you, like I always like to say, God doesn't do things by mistake. There's a reason that I'm here in Delray Beach, Florida. There's a reason that Greg is there in
I used to be in
communist.
Delray, Mike. I tried to get you down
Oops.
for years.
But you
Of
did.
course,
You
I'm not
did.
there anymore, and you're there.
No. And I shouldn't say communist Connecticut. I apologize. That's not right. That's not right. I apologize.
Whatever.
Little humor there. But no, Greg's in Connecticut, which is a beautiful state. A lot of great things. Love Westport, Stanford, of course, and Greenwich
Yep.
and other great areas. Candlewood Lake, I used to go to when I was a
Yes.
kid. So Connecticut's a great state, great state. But this is practice.
Yeah.
You can't just listen to this one time and put it away.
No.
And we're hoping that you can use the conversation that Greg and I had today. Let it light that fire. Greg says this all the time, and it's a great way how I'm going to steal one of your quotes to end this episode.
Go for it.
Don't let anyone put out your fire.
Nobody. I don't care who it is. Mother, father, brother, sister, girlfriend. Nobody puts your. The only person that can put your fire out is you. That's it. No one can do it.
And let the EmpowerMAN podcast be the kerosene that ignites that flame.
We'll light it. We'll light it all day for you.
Greg, any final thoughts?
No, I think we covered a lot. And I just want everyone out there to Mike said they're reps. It's repetitions every day. Just be a little bit better than yesterday. You hear this all the time. Just pick one thing. If you're a negative person, one less negative thought a day. Do that once a day. All of a sudden, that turns into 7 days in a week. So that's 7 less negative thoughts. Now you do it for a month. Now that you do it for a year, 365. That's a lot of less negativity by just doing one less thought a day. So if you notice, sports, anybody, doctors, surgeons, they practice, practice, practice. You should 100% put yourself first. And there's no reason why you can't do reps and practice on yourself every day, no matter what it is.
And it all starts with habits, guys. And let
Yes.
this be a foundation for your habits going forward. Like you said, Greg, we covered a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
I want to thank everyone out there for listening. Thank you for allowing us the platform to express ourselves and to coach and educate and bring people together. We need this more than ever, guys. We need to come together as men, as women, as Americans. We need to, and I said this before, and I'm going to close up upon this. We got to love each other more. We need to be more tolerant, more acceptant. And that's another episode that we're going to touch on down the road.
Because we were not that when we were younger people. Let me tell you, we were the farthest thing from that.
And things were different back then. Society, times have changed. We were all, kind of cool with each other. We were all cool with each other. Not kind of, we were all cool with each other.
Yep.
And then you see society kind of take a dip in another direction. And we're pitting brother against brother, sister against sister, when we really need to come together and love and be more easy on each other and just be lighter, not to be so heavy. We just got to be lighter and accept people. And Greg and I are going to touch upon that on another episode. Greggy T, if anyone out there wants to reach us, where can they reach us at?
All right. So Instagram, EmpowerMAN Podcast. We have YouTube, Spotify, iTunes. You can find us on all the platforms. If you want a certain topic or question answers, because we do get these a lot, just DM us on Instagram. It's all good. We read them all. It is Mike and I. There's no one else. These aren't edited, as you can clearly see. And we would love to hear from you, and we throw questions at us. We'll get into this in later episodes. Him and I have led a pretty awesome life, ups, downs, all different directions and things we've done. Some good, some not so good. It's all good. That's what brought us here today and made us who we are. So we just want to pay it forward and help somebody not make the potential mistakes that we made, to save them maybe some time and some money and mental space. So we're here to help, and we would love to hear from you. So, and please like and follow and subscribe on all those platforms.
I couldn't have said that any better. And we are really excited. We have some awesome content coming down the road. We're going to touch on some topics that are going to be challenging. But we need to have these discussions, because leadership starts with you and I. It starts here at this platform, having this discussion. And our goal and our vision is to let this spread like wildfire, and that we can empower men all over the world. Because if I can lead and Greg can lead, someone out there who's listening to this can follow suit. And I'm going to sign off from the very free state of Florida. Greggy T, thank you so much for your time today, sir.
Awesome discussion. We look forward to seeing you guys again. Thank you again, and enjoy your weekend.